Hey guys, it's me Meteorz, and welcome to an episode of What is Klonoa Canon? This time we're talking about Ghadius. We first see Ghadius on the top of Bill Hill in Breezegale, where the ship in the beginning of the game crash landed on. His plan is to kidnap the diva Laphise, so Phantomile would descend into nightmares and darkness. After kidnapping Laphise, he then causes a lot of trouble in Phantomile. He brainwashed the King of Jogpot alongside with his guards and his companion Pamela, used his powers to reverse the flow of Jogpot's waterfall, causing the water to no longer reach Folklock, killing the majority of the forest life, and went to Coronia and defeated the High Priest. But of course, our heroes Klonoa and Hupo managed to pull through and encounter Ghadius in the top of Coronia. It was here that we discovered that Ghadius is actually fueled by vengeance. Vengeance for those who sealed him away, and for those who rely on good dreams. So he plans to unleash the Egg of Destruction upon Phantomile, which is within the Moon Kingdom. After Klonoa defeated Joka, one of Ghadius' minions, it was too late, as he used a crystal in the Moon Pendant that Laphise had to summon the Moon Kingdom Crest, spreading nightmare energy around Phantomile. But of course, our heroes Klonoa and Hupo managed to pull through and make one final encounter with Ghadius in the Kingdom of Crest, as Ghadius explains more about his feelings of rejection. The rejection that he felt towards the people that rejected nightmares and only relied on good dreams, which is why he's willing to throw the world away, as he felt that the world did to him. Once Ghadius was defeated, it was too late, as he already poisoned the prism, the source of all that is Phantomile, with his nightmares, unleashing the Egg of Destruction, Nahatube. Now that is pretty much all we know about Ghadius in Door to Phantomile and the remake. However, there is outside sources that actually expand more into Ghadius' backstory and lore. In the English manual of Klonoa Door to Phantomile, Ghadius is described as a dark spirit, who controls the world of darkness and has the ability to warp space, which is probably demonstrated in his boss battle. However, it also explains that he was imprisoned by the other spirits. Though it is also stated in here that Ghadius started a rebellion because of his jealousy over the omnipotent power of the Moon Spirit, who could create anything in the universe. The other spirits, the Wind Spirit, the Tree Spirit, and the Water Spirit, helped out the Moon Spirit to take down Ghadius, as after 100 days of war, they finally contained and imprisoned Ghadius, ending the war. In the Japanese version, the only real difference is that the spirits are referred to as gods, while Ghadius is referred to as the King of Darkness. But that's really the only difference in regards to translation. Though the reason why I mentioned this is because in both official Klonoa guidebooks by Famitsu and Shugakukan, Ghadius was never referred to as a spirit. So my guess is that is only used for the English translation. Though on that note, we actually do get more information in these guidebooks when it comes to Ghadius. For example, it does actually go into more detail on what happened during the war 3,000 years ago. Ghadius' army during the war operated airships, probably similar ones that Joka was using in the game, while the Allied forces used a giant fish to fight their war, which you could see the skeletal remains on in the ruins. The war was extremely long, but once Jogpot's water froze over alongside with Ghadius in it, the war has finally came to an end, which then they decided to seal away the Kingdom of Crest, so no tragedy like this would ever happen again. Or so they thought. Now with all that being said, that still doesn't really describe why Ghadius has these feelings of rejection. Well, unless you count the jealousy part. However, Hideo Yoshizawa, the director and screenplay writer of Klonoa Door to Phantomile, did actually made a fanfic that sort of serves as a retelling of events of Door to Phantomile. Now, I think it's safe to say that this version of Door to Phantomile isn't canon, since it isn't officially licensed nor endorsed by Namco. However, it is written by the director and screenplay writer of Klonoa Door to Phantomile, so I still feel like there is some merit to mention it here. However, there are some key differences that sort of separates this from the main game. Like how Klonoa is split into 3 characters, the absence of Joka, though considering that Joka was included in the middle of the game's storyboard process, that could explain his absence here. How the spirits/gods are referred to as kings instead, while the moon one is really the only one referred to as a god king. And how Ghadius' backstory is expanded upon much more here. Like in the game, when our heroes encountered Ghadius, who is named Ghadius in the fanfic, in the kingdom of Cress, this is where he was asked why he's doing all this, which he responds with revenge like in the game. However, this is where his backstory gets expanded more. Apparently in those 3,000 years ago, the kings of the Water, Wind, and Tree kingdoms were trying to gain superiority from one another. So, the Water Kingdom decided to invade the Moon Kingdom of Cress, which then the other kingdoms followed afterwards. Ghadius, being the captain of the Cress's guard at the time, intercepted the invasion as the God King of Cress got fed up with all this and decided to sink the giant fish at the Wind Kingdom to show his power in comparison to the rest of the kingdoms, despite Ghadius' plea not to. This caused destruction and chaos around the Wind Kingdom until the giant fish was eventually slain, as they used Ghadius as a scapegoat, so all of the kingdom's credibility wouldn't be hindered. So, they decided to fabricate a whole war just to justify his punishment and sealed him away within the ruins of the Wind Kingdom. Now, it can be argued whether this could be Door to Phantomile's story if Hideo Yoshizawa had more creative freedom, considering that this fanfic does have some considerable differences from the game, which is why I feel like its canonicity is sorta hampered by that, and also for the fact that it isn't officially licensed or endorsed by Namco. However, I still think there is somewhat merit to the lore, since in one of the developer relay essays, they actually wanted to include more story and lore within the game. However, since they wanted Door to Phantomile to be more of a fast-paced action game, they had to scrap a lot of that out. So, what I'm thinking this could be some of those scrapped ideas that they wanted to put. Now, am I saying that the war from 3,000 years ago was all a fabrication and that Ghadius is a victim of circumstance? Who knows? I don't really think there's anything in the game that really contradicts this backstory. However, I would still take it with a grain of salt and wait until there's some solid confirmation. But regardless, I pretty much talked about everything I needed to in regards to Ghadius. See you guys next time!